You're listening to Midlife State of Mind podcast, hosted by Erin, a midlife gal who dishes on all the challenges and opportunities that come with this middle section of your life. Each episode, you'll find yourself going between laughter and tears as she covers all the topics you need to know about midlife.
Welcome back to Midlife State of Mind. I'm your host, Erin Beadle. Thank you so much for joining me for another episode today. Have you ever caught yourself out and about and you see someone and you automatically start making judgments about them in your mind? You may not share it with anyone, but in your thoughts, you're like, oh my gosh, why is she wearing that? That looks terrible on her. Or what is he even doing? Well, first, let me put your mind at ease and let you know that judgment is a very natural instinct of our human brain. In prior episodes, you may have heard me mention how our brains are wired for survival. They're not wired to make us happy. And so one of our survival mechanisms is learning how to make snap judgments really quickly to determine if something is safe or if someone is safe. And so often our brains begin to label people as either trustworthy or untrustworthy just by looking at them at a surface level. And so if you find yourself judging people, first off, just let yourself know that, okay, this is normal. But along with that judging for survival, there are some other reasons why we may judge people. So maybe we learn to judge from our childhood experiences. We might have grown up in a household where we witnessed a lot of judgment based on morals or values or how other people raise their kids. Maybe you heard your parents saying things. And so we might have learned that behavior and just adopted that same behavior because it was just something that we think is like, that's what everyone does. And then another reason that we might judge is because it helps us feel better about ourselves, because we might look at somebody and kind of think, well, at least I don't do that, right? I mean, I may have this, and this, but at least I don't do that. So we might judge people based on their looks. We might judge people based on decisions that they make, maybe on what they wear. A little story for you guys. This weekend, my husband and I were out to dinner, and there was a lady who was dressed very scantily, and he and I are judging her and, going, oh my gosh. She was probably wearing an outfit that, like, in my opinion, was a little bit revealing. Her breasts were kind of hanging out, and it was a very short dress that when she would bend over to pet this dog, because we happened to be sitting outside because it was a beautiful day, her whole hiney was hanging out. As we're sitting there saying like, oh my goodness, what is she wearing? Like, she shouldn't be wearing that. I knew I was recording this episode. And so I had the conversation with him about it and why am I judging her? Like, is it because it makes me feel uncomfortable about myself? Does it make me feel that things that I've learned about women who wear short skirts that society says, all of that rolled up into a big ball of judgment. And so I was finding that maybe it's because I was trying to make myself feel better about myself. And then sometimes we can judge as a way to gain acceptance. Maybe it's like if you're in a group of people and they're all kind of gossiping about another person and you want to feel like a part of the group. And so you might join in on the judgment and the laughter at somebody else's expense just to gain acceptance into the group. So all of those reasons and probably many more are reasons that we judge people. So whether it's right or wrong is a decision that you have to make. But we want to think about ways that we can counter judgment. How can we try to change our natural tendency to judge people, or at least be so quick? Now, obviously, if you were walking down the street at night and it was dark and you saw a man either coming from the other direction or behind you, walking behind you, you need to make a judgment that your safety could be in jeopardy. If you listen to any true crime podcasts, one of my favorites is called My Favorite Murder, and they say F politeness, which I love because I have a tendency to be uber polite and not want to ruffle feathers and not hurt people's feelings. But if you feel ever that your safety is in question, then you need to judge. Like, I judge men. If I'm alone walking and there's another man walking, I will make a judgment that he is a danger to me, whether he is or not. And you know what? If he doesn't have any nefarious intent, then he's going to understand why I'm judging him, because I'm a smart woman who needs to stay aware of my surroundings. But if we want to think about our everyday when we're at the grocery store and we see a mother yelling at her kids, or we see someone dressed inappropriately or acting in a way that we don't agree with, and we find ourselves just automatically starting to judge that person, how can we counter that? So I think one of the things that you have to do when you find yourself judging someone is to get really curious about it. See if you can start to get deeper into, why am I judging someone? Can I explore that judgment and see, is it because I'm feeling threatened by them? Is it because I want to feel superior to them? Is it because they're doing things that go against my values and morals? Now, obviously, we know if you saw somebody stealing, or if you saw somebody beating someone, or if you saw somebody murdering someone, and if it's something that's against the law, then yeah, you're going to judge them because that's wrong. And as a society, we all have morals and values that are universal, like thou shalt not kill. I mean, if you want to think about the 10 Commandments, but maybe it's just something that we see, that an outfit that we're wearing, and we're just going, what is she doing wearing that? Like I was at the restaurant. Then I ask you to get curious. Can you examine why you're feeling like you need to judge that person? Can you admit to yourself why you're judging them? And then can you allow yourself to be curious about it and then let it go? So instead of trying to beat ourselves up because we're judging people, we have to know that it has its deep roots in nature and instinct. If we start to practice that self-awareness as the first step, and then the second step would be, can we practice compassion and empathy? Can we say, if we see someone scolding a child, maybe they had a bad day. I know certainly as a mom of 3 boys who are now grown, I look back at some of the times that I lost my temper or maybe handled a situation not in the best way I could, but I was either overwhelmed, or maybe I had a million things to do, or I hadn't gotten good sleep, or maybe my child had missed a nap and I was just at my wit's end. And I know I wouldn't want to be judged overall as a parent by that one small snapshot in time. So if we try to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. So yesterday when we were watching that woman and having the conversation with my husband, I started trying to cultivate this compassion for her. Maybe she feels like she has to dress that way because she is needing attention. Whether it's right or wrong attention, whether she's getting the right attention that she wants, or maybe she's just like, screw it, I love this outfit and I'm going to rock it. I don't care, what other people think. Which then I told my husband, you know what? Kudos to her for being confident enough to be out there with this really short skirt on and this really low cut bare midriff with, her boobs hanging out. You know what? If she is okay with it, why should it bother me? So I think as I get older, I actually am becoming less judgmental. The more life experience I have, the more that I'm able to put myself in other people's shoes, the more compassion that I cultivate within myself and empathy. And then also just really practicing that self-awareness and questioning myself when I find myself judging that I feel like I don't really like about myself. So hopefully maybe next time you find yourself out and about and you're judging someone, you'll think back to this conversation and practice those things. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I would love to have you hit the follow button so that you can stay in the loop whenever new episodes drop. And if you enjoy the content that I create, I would be really grateful if you would leave me a rating and a written review on whichever podcast platform you are listening to me on. And then lastly, if you are interested in some additional ways that you can support the podcast, take a look at the show notes and you'll find a list of some of my most favorite things ever. The products linked are all ones that I use on a regular basis and I love, and I would recommend them to all of my friends. And if you do choose to purchase any of the products with my links, then the podcast earns a small commission, and that just helps to offset some of the expenses of producing it. I'd love to hear your thoughts on judgment. You can go to midlifestateofmindpodcast.com and you can send me a message there or check out Midlife State of Mind Podcast on Instagram and Facebook and join in the conversation. My podcast is a place where we can inspire each other to make positive changes and embrace all that midlife has to offer. I'll be back next week with another episode. See you then. Bye.
This has been an E Squared production.